This is All Grit.
Hosted by Animesh and Tanya.
Today on the podcast, we are in conversation with Enno Kraft. He works as an industry executive for Microsoft in Munich, has completed his MBA from EDHEC Business School France, and comes from a rich background in the automotive industry. Max gives us a peek into the life of a typical MBA student in Europe while taking us through his adventures describing his projects during MBA, how he was selected for the Microsoft Aspire Leadership Program, and more importantly, the hustle he put into creating those opportunities for himself.
Hi, Max. Very excited to have you here. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Tanya. Nice to meet you and nice being here. Same for Animesh. Hi from Germany. Hi from Munich. It's very warm here today.
It's great to have you, Max. How is the COVID situation out there in Germany right now?
I think, we kind of had it under control in a way, but now numbers are rising again. So I think there's a bit of uncertainty at the moment. So you cannot go to, for example, some destinations in Europe for vacation, or you should not at least, and always need to be tested. So I think it worsened a bit, let's say.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's what's happening everywhere else as well. Numbers are kind of stabilizing and then it goes up again. So
yeah,
let's see. So, all right, to start things off, you've had an impressive career so far, which started from your, family business and followed by your big move to your corporate role as an industry executive managing automotive clients at Microsoft. Now, can you briefly describe to us the journey from your early days in your family business after your bachelor's in business administration? What triggered your decision to pause your career and invest in an international MBA from there?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's also some years ago. So when I, first of all, I think it's important to know I did an apprenticeship in a branch of the family business, not at the center, the headquarters, but somewhere else in Hamburg. And that was really exhausting work from time to time. And I directly came out of high school. So that is how I started my work life. Then afterwards, like you mentioned, I did the bachelor. I was a general management bachelor. And then I started going to the headquarters and working there. And I directly, immediately got pushed into management because then that's the structure of the family business. So you have people like line of business managers, branch managers, and then you have the CEOs. And my cousin and me, we just got slashed in there. And that was kind of a hard transition, I would say. But after 1 year, I think I was able to manage, and the expectations that were set, I was able to level at this stage. And I think for me at some point there was a certain point where I felt like I couldn't develop anymore. Like I was able to do all that was expected of me, and that's actually where I decided. I always wanted to do an MBA, but after 5 years or 4 years, I would say it was more 4 years. I was at a point that I was really looking forward to do so, like going abroad for a year, doing the master, like the MBA, which I always wanted to. And that was the time I decided for it. So end of 2017, I knew that I would do it. And then it was kind of like a quick run, the TOEFL, the GMAT, looking at schools. We at the company had a takeover, so we took over a company at that time. So to be honest, I knew the city I was going in, but I actually never visited the university. So it was just, I decided for a business school and then I just went for it,
So that's an interesting part to take, Max. After your family business, you went into MBA. Now, when we look at that decision, you went into a class with a lot of nationalities. How did you cope up with so many work ethics and so many cultures coming together in one class? And at the same time, did your experience of a family business help you during your MBA, that 1 year intensive program which you went through?
Yeah, it's also a good question. I think so. The original idea for me, like I mentioned before, was to develop further. Live abroad again. I did live for some time in Rome for a semester, which I really liked, and that was already very intercultural. So there was a lot of Brazilians, Argentinians. We had a football team. So that was something I was wanting to pick up onto. So from the culture perspective, I was used to being an international culture for half a year, and I kind of adapted back then. And I don't feel like I'm a typical German, let's say. So yeah, that was not a big issue, I would say, not an issue at all. But I think you mentioned like the work ethics. That was very different to me. I mean, I knew it back then that people have a different perception of, or can have a bit different perception of, that's a deadline, what does a deadline mean to you? When do you start working towards the deadline so you're able to achieve, what you want to do until that point? And I mean, that was was a problem at the beginning, quite frankly. And I wasn't, so I needed to learn to let go, needed to learn to let people do what, they're capable. Just let them do. Don't try to micromanage too much. But that was what I was planning a lot, doing a lot in the beginning. Like, no, let me keep the timeline. I was pushing people a bit too hard, I think, just for the matter, of the good cause. But then again, it's all people working with each other. So that was a big issue in the beginning. So more of the work ethics, and from the family business background, I mean, I was exposed to a lot of senior people quite early, and so when I started, negotiations with suppliers, to someone who's in charge, like a general manager of the business unit in Germany or even Europe. So I was listening a lot in the beginning, and I kind of got a good grasp of what's their mindset. Someone who's really senior, 50 something. If you observe, or when you observe, you can kind of see how these people tick. And so I was really, to define or to sum it up, I wasn't really, I was always calm, let's say. So I always knew it somehow it needed to work out. And then, it was very intense, but not that intense that I would be, totally devastated at times or something.
When it came to work ethics, did it follow a cultural or a country where people of one country are similar, or did it came down to the individual, like this personality is like this?
I don't think you can break it down to countries, but I would say, for example, in tendency, you cannot say that about every person. But of course, South Americans, let's say, sometimes have a different perception of, that is, I told you I was delivering that kind of work part until tomorrow, 8 a.m. So in the morning, so we were able to pick up on that. And then I would say there was more to an individual than to any cultural thing. But then also, I think people that went into the MBA had different ambitions. And that was also what we found out. So we had a after discussion, so like a summary discussion with a professor. And I think what would have been important is to agree beforehand. Why are you here? What's your scope? What are you looking for? Why, for example, is this course not so interesting to you, while for me or someone else in the group it is? So I wouldn't break it down too much into, like I mentioned before, it's not a good example. I wouldn't break it down too much into cultural or country ethics or behaviors.
I think that's interesting and we resonate with that completely, because we are in the MBA right now, and it's just, working with different teams. At one point, you're working with 3 different teams, in the day, and that's just different dynamics in every team. So that's something that needs time to get used to. Now, another interesting and exciting thing that I noticed while you were in your MBA that you did was your project with Johnson & Johnson. So how confident do you feel did you feel while leaving your comfort zone of automotive and jumping into healthcare? Because I'm sure that must have been challenging for you.
Yeah, to be quite honest, kind of zero secure, because I looked at the projects. So there was the possibility to do this consulting project or a job report internship. So there were a few possibilities. But I was looking at this internship. I always liked Johnson & Johnson as an FMCG company, not so much the medical subscription-based products, more the products that are well known, let's say. to the public everyday use. So I always liked the company, and I decided for the company mainly. But I had a friend in the MBA. Actually, he was Indian, is Indian, who is a doctor, and he's into this kind of medical stuff. So he was researching about like synapses in the brain, and he's a very smart guy. And I asked him beforehand, like, are you deciding for this project? Because if you would do, I'm sure I can do this as well, because then we already have a teammate. And then that's how I decided. But yeah, the comfort zone, that was a total step out of the comfort zone. I realized at some point that the sales model and the way they take care, like a sales reps, how they take care of their clients, which is pharmacies, in a way, and also doctors, that is similar to some sales structures I was used to. But the topic and the way it's prescription based, so it's a totally different business. And then again, it was about diabetes patients and how they test their blood sugar levels. I was not really known, in any way, not really aware. I just knew what diabetes type 1 and 2 was, but I had no idea also about. I knew Johnson & Johnson, and of course I knew Bayer. But other companies that are also market leaders in this, like very progressive in this market, I had no idea about them. So that was a big learning, I would say.
So how important do you think it is in a course like MBA to kind of leave your comfort zone and step out of it and try new things?
I think not just in the MBA, that's one of the most important things to do in life, because if you're the subject matter expert, that's what we call it here. I mean, you need subject matter experts for sure. You will always be. Let's say you're an. I can't think of a good example. Maybe cloud computing. You're the total cloud computing guy. That's fine. But for me, to be honest, I wanted to, if you're the expert, everyone is listening to you all the time. And I mean, you gain knowledge and you reproduce, but you never really learn that much because the learning curve is not that steep anymore. While if you start with a new topic, like you learn so quickly, like your grasp is gonna increase in a way that's very significant and interesting in a way. So I think it's very important to do that, and especially in the MBA. So we had the chance, like the consulting project was within the MBA, so really in the middle of it. What could go wrong? You could just learn for it. If you were trying to use it as leverage for some position, yeah, you could, but you don't necessarily have to. So we started in January. Consulting project was May, June. If you apply in August or September, you can, take this as an experience, maybe build on it, but you don't have to. So I think it's really interesting and really important to do this. So yeah, that's my summary. Yeah.
Right. And from what I assume, it was also you had to sort of bid for these projects and kind of interview for them. So that was a whole process that you were involved in. So, this and the fact that the job that you took later full-time with Microsoft, was your career services office your go-to when you were making these choices, these decisions, or were you trying on your own? What is that process like?
I think for me, it was a mixture. I'm not sure about, so we were 100 people in the batch, 150 overall with the 2 intakes. For me, it was a mixture because of my background, which is a bit unique. I mean, I come from a family business that at least outside of the sector, is not known. And the position I had is also more a mixture of, a lot of responsibilities, and then again, not so many, like typical, I would say. If you're a sales manager, I mean, everyone knows what a sales manager is, kind of. So I was looking a lot, on my own. I used the career services, for corporate contacts. But the most useful thing was the alumni day, because I actually met someone from Microsoft, and I was in the process at that time, and he offered help. There was another alumni, both are still at Microsoft. Also willing to help. We had another call with someone who just got in, a good friend of mine now who I met at the Las Vegas convention actually last year. So, I mean, that was the most part of it that I could take out of this. But mainly I was doing my own research. There was the summer break after the consulting project and the EDHEC MBA. You have If you're a January intake, you have the July, August off. And that was the time where you could travel, where you could think about what you want to do. You could work on your CV. You could already look at job postings, see how you match. And there was also a career coach in the MBA. And that's something that's how I did it. So I took it, I finished my CV, I polished it in a way. I was writing cover letters, and then I was challenged, like I let myself be challenged from the coach. Like that is a position I would go for. What do you think? And that was my main approach on these kind of 2 or 3 aspects where I concentrated on.
Now, when after the MBA, a lot of opportunities must have come your way. But you chose to be with Microsoft and the Aspire Leadership Program. What attracted you specifically to that?
So, I think early on in March, we had a scoping call with the Microsoft talent recruiter, EMEA. And you just had to kind of put your CV on there. And they were looking at profiles. So they were looking at sales, business development. So I was like, yeah, why don't I give it a go? Sounds interesting. Afterwards, I looked at the program and I was like, yeah, who knows? What are my chances? And the more I evolved at the stages, next round, I passed this round. And then I started thinking like, yeah, this could get serious. I wasn't really expecting it. And to be honest, my mind at the beginning was more of an automotive supplier. So the idea was to stay in France, let's say. In the end, I'm totally happy to be here. That's the best solution, the best offer, and the best. I'm totally happy. But since you're going to the MBA and you're not fully aware of what's possible, and you're not fully aware of where you want to go, and what's the 3-year scope, 1 year, even 5, you don't know. So it evolved in a way, it evolved. And then we had an assessment center here in Munich back in November 2018. And that was a very nice experience. So there was only one assessment center. They didn't invite 100 people for 5 job offerings, but 10 for 5. So that was quite fair. And then I had a call with my current manager now that evolved out of the assessment center. And it just felt, what they were offering, like the way they wanted to approach automotive, which is, where I come from and what I really care about. That was just how I like going, towards a client, how I like engaging a client. So the Microsoft idea is not like in general. There's a lot of things how we think we should do our business or how we operate. But like one main point is we don't compete with our customers. So we are a B2B enabler. And I really like this idea because from my background, that is kind of the same. It's a family business that is serving workshops, and we don't want to build a workshop to compete with a workshop that we are selling parts to. So that is one of the principles which I really liked. And there was a white paper on automotive I was reading about. I just read it. It was, I think, 8 or 12 pages. And I just really liked what I was reading. And that's why I chose for it. Like the Aspire MBA program, it was formerly called MAC. I just, it's interesting. Let me try that. But it was more the Microsoft overall, I just wanted to come here.
So initially you were trying to get out of your comfort zone again, or did you know that you'll land up in automotive?
No, I didn't like, if I had gone, let's say, to an automotive supplier, that would be going not out of my comfort zone. And that was initially the plan, or consulting. I was also considering consulting, but it didn't really feel like it. So Microsoft, I don't have a technical background, so it is a challenge in a way. But then again, I'm engaging with automotive clients, which is what I know, or what I know of. So it's a mixture, I would say. It's not a total career change in a way, but it's still different because I had to learn, especially in the beginning, I had to learn a lot of the topics that we're driving here because it's more than office, and all of these parts or all of these offering services that we like as a whole have, I had to learn about that in the beginning a lot. So there was still some out of the comfort zone, at least, yeah.
It was really interesting what you said about Microsoft earlier. And, over the years, we've seen Microsoft create this ecosystem of sorts with various offerings around the needs of consumers and businesses. So how does, segmenting your target market into different sectors, for example, it could be aviations, metals, it could be automotive, infrastructure. So how does that help segmenting your target market? And when you specifically talk about automotive, since that's your expertise, what value does it offer to add?
I think like the separation of the segments, that's something the general business all companies do. If that's really useful, I think you can take a look at it from two sides. One side, you have a separated, let's say, automotive, manufacturing, public sector, whatever side, like in your company. So, all people in charge of these clients in what position ever, they're really focused on the industry. So learning, they're gaining knowledge, they gain an understanding of the customer. But then again, you're creating silos. And these silos mean that, for example, if you take a look at a smart city, what is a smart city? You have to talk to authorities, but also to transportation companies, and then also maybe to automotive companies, because robotaxis could be coming from them at some point. So I can't really judge on that. That's how we operate the business in a way. Not just us, I think all companies, but I'm pretty sure that will change at some point. But the big task is, if you then merge, let's say, these kind of sales teams, customer care teams, they would have to understand each other's points more, because if you merge the segments, they have to understand the whole value chain. And then I think that's a big challenge for a lot of companies.
And, talking about right now when we're in the middle of a pandemic, do you think that outlook has changed after, and it's going to kind of reflect in how do business after the pandemic?
I think the pandemic is a big game changer for a lot of industries. So looking at let's say at the automotive clients, like there's suppliers and then there's the OEMs, so the car manufacturers. And especially for them, if you're closing your dealership and people are not used to, or from a legal point of view, maybe it's not really possible to fully do this online, and maybe they don't want to, because they want to see the car before, and they want to have a one-to-one with a sales rep who tells them about the car. That's a lot of things that are changing at the moment, and the question is, how will they ever change back in the way we're used to? And I think there's a lot of insecureness in the market, not just automotive, all over the world. If you take a look at the GDP, and if you take a look at the countries, so we mentioned it earlier, we talked about it earlier in the morning. So Germany, let's say, we kind of have it under control. The infection numbers it's not to celebrate, but it's okay. But if you take a look at other countries, and then again, like how we're like a world economy, there's a lot of issues we haven't solved, and so we don't know where this gonna. No one knows where this is gonna help. And then again, you've got politics, which, for example, for the automotive industry, I think they didn't really help them, because a lot of help programs are put on the way, and I think that could have been better, if you ask me, because we need to empower the companies that are already in place, so they employ a lot of people, and they need to be empowered in this special situation, because it's no one's fault that this pandemic is now just around us. We haven't found a cure, so we just need to, like, from day to day, from week to week, find or look for what's best for everyone, like the whole society.
When we talk about automotive these days, we use the word mobility. We use the word mobility for everything. We have bunched it up, all the transportation and mobility. And companies like Amazon, Google, even people say that Tesla is a tech company now. So what outlook does Microsoft hold when it comes to mobility?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, our mission is kind of to engage closely with the customers, enable them. So if at the moment, the numbers are this around, I think there was 95 million cars produced every year and then registered. this number is going down to some degree. And then you've got mega cities where they are thinking about more robotaxi-like, even helicopters, and the car ownership, maybe this will go down. But that's like the future talk. And we're not a consulting. We do have a consulting business unit. But the overall strategy of a company, so we can engage with them, we can show them how this is done, because technically it is done. We have a partnership with Volkswagen on a connected vehicle platform, but the market, we don't steer the market. We're the tech enabler. And I think, like you mentioned, there's also Uber, there's Tesla for sure. But that's a car manufacturer. Yeah, maybe it's a tech company, but it's a car manufacturer. So I think it's pretty interesting to develop these ideas and to see how the market fits. Now with the pandemic, I would say things got pushed back a little bit because car sharing, let's say, people are afraid of germs, so they don't really want to use a car share service because they don't know how clean is this, and who was in this car before. How long is it ago? Was he or she like ill? Maybe, who knows? So I think the numbers were going down on this one, and then the smart city, like what I mentioned in the beginning. Like if you talk about mobility as a general topic, that is something where we need the authorities for. So a city, a municipality would have to say, so we think end to end. You can take like a street scooter, you can take a bike. You can take a shared ride, you can take a cab, something, you can, whatever, we have to find solutions for that. And that is something which is pure future talk, I would say. I think Singapore and some cities are very advanced, but all over the world, not yet. That's at least my to my knowledge and my perception.
That's so cars have always been this integral part of the human civilization since Henry Ford came up with Model T, and since Henry Ford came up with assembly lines. So like we are living in a time where we are seeing everything change. Like you said, it is future talk that you have self-drive cars and robo taxis, right? And that might be a future where you just sit and you're dropped. You sit in a car and you're dropped in your destination. So that is kind of utopian, and let's see what happens in the future as well.
Yeah, it's not really utopian. There's these 5 levels of autonomous driving, and our technology, for example, helps you calculate algorithms so these systems work. So you can run this all in Azure. We've got services for that, and we have clients that use it. But the market, like I mentioned, so there also has to be some legal parts. Some legal things have to change, because at the point at now, at least in the German system, when you're the driver, you're accountable for what happens with the car. So this would need to change. Let's say we're fully autonomous. So you go in the car, there's no steering wheel anymore, no pedals. There needs to be a legal framework to enable this. So what if an accident happens? Is the algorithm to blame, or what is? That's very different. I think that's what I mean with future talk. That's what we haven't solved yet, let's say. But from a technical perspective, it's just a question of time, because you can develop these systems, and our customers do. It's just who will buy this? What's the service like? Will this run in a car you own from time to time? Sometimes you want to drive yourself. Sometimes you let yourself drive. Or in the mega cities, you don't want to own your car anymore, and you just take a fully autonomous cab, and you just pay for the time or the for the range you use the service.
So coming back to your life, this is the cream of the piece where we ask you what was the hardest decision which you ever had to take. So through your MBA, before your MBA, or during your time at Microsoft, what was the hardest decision, Max, that you had to take?
I think the hardest decision I had to take was actually leaving the family business, because like I mentioned, I did know nothing else a part of this. So I did my apprenticeship after high school there, and then I started studying, and then I have like 7 years within that company, and that's kind of like my own 7 years. I also worked at the university at the time, but that was part-time, and you can't really compare it from the intensity. So leaving going this step, like just say, okay, that's it. That's the end of the road at this stage. I want to move on. I want to learn. I want to move somewhere else. I want to live abroad. See what's coming next after that. That was my so far hardest decision, I would say, because you didn't know. I didn't know what expects me. That's why I mentioned in the beginning. So yeah, I do come from automotive car parts sales. So automotive supplier, yeah, that's the way to go. So that was my scope when I started. That's why I mentioned that's what I was looking for. But if someone asked me in February or March, when I was like 2 or 3 months in the program, that's my answer. Like, yeah, I will be going to this company maybe. And then that's a journey, so you decide and you don't know what comes afterwards. So you also give up a salary for sure, right? So you pay for the MBA, you give up a job, which also pays you money. So it's a double minus that year, no income, but you still had to pay the fees. So yeah, that was a hard decision. But in the end, everything kind of turned out how I wished for. And I think that's just like, to me, that's beautiful, got lucky in a way. Also was working hard that year, I would say. So it's a mixture, maybe, or most likely. But yeah, that's what happened.
No, I think it really paid off in your case, the hardest decision that you took.
Let's hope for.
I think it would really help us a lot, especially since we are in the middle of MBA right now, and we're just, I think, 6-7 months from the time that we have to look for jobs and apply to jobs. So what was it that you were doing? If you have some advice for us, for people like us, what were you doing, say 6 months or 7? When did you start applying? What was that process like? And what should we be doing at this stage in our course?
I think so. Like I mentioned before, I was in that stage in the summer. So the consulting project ended. We had a final review with the team, and then we had this kind of summer goodbye to the September intake guys, because they were 10 months in the program. There was a big party at the beach, was really nice, really fun. A lot of people together saying goodbye. But for us, we knew the summer break was coming. And then in September, it's kind of like, that's the last run, that's the last dance in a way. And so like I said, I did my CV polishing and applying in the summer. And then it was too early. So there was a summer break. I was still 6 months in the program. I did apply a bit in the summer, but there was also the feedback I got. So I think half a year is too early. I wanted to do that, but I don't think it's necessary or useful. I would say 3 or 4 months before you're done, that is a good time. What you can do in general, of course, but that's, I think, what a lot of people got told and what a lot of people do is just reach out randomly to people on LinkedIn. And I also saw posts from HR people that are, a bit sick of it. So you need to do your homework. You need to really think of like a high-level consultancy job. So you say, this is me, this is what I can bring. That is my experience so far. I know I can develop into this, but the segment or the sector of the company, what am I able, like with a prior job experience, or even if that's not the case, with your theoretical knowledge from studying, from internships, I can solve this problem. And that's why I engage with you if there's an opportunity in this company. So maybe an internship where I'm able to prove myself. So this could be based on a job offer you see, or a recruiter somewhere from a job fair or something. So just going there, I will be done with a MBA in a bit. I'm supposed to be smart. Why don't you hire me? I think that's not enough in a way. And that's how I would do it, because if you offer a solution to a problem, maybe a problem they don't even see, which is unlikely unless you're a total expert, but, just engage, and then, that's what I would do. And from the timing, I would say 3 to 4 months before.
Thank you. That's really useful. And I think, we need all these tips right now because we have to hustle and, make that.
And you have to hustle online. It's not that easy.
Yes. So, I mean, I would love to keep talking to you about your MBA and your time at Microsoft and the work that you do. But we are short on time. We are at the end of the episode. And this is something that we leave for all our guests to talk about in the end. Is something exciting that you've been up to recently, especially during this social predicament? So anything exciting that you've been up to and you can share with us?
So let's put it this way. I still have 30 days of vacation. It's like my full vacation. It's only been work, let's say, especially when Germany was hit hard by the pandemic. I mean, when all the regulations came out or were released in a way and put upon us. So I was just working, I like working, so that's not a big deal. It's okay for me totally. I'm fine, but there was nothing much to do so far. I was in the home office at my mother's place for 3 months, and there was, was a nice time, but you couldn't go out that much and stuff. So sports, I can go for a run, I can do some home gym stuff, but there's nothing much, to be honest. What keeps me motivated is the work. I have great colleagues, a great team, good clients. It's just really engaging. But I wouldn't say, I like playing tennis so much. I play every second day. That's not really the case. So I don't know how you guys do that, but it is a hard time for all of us at the moment.